All right, hi everybody. So in this series of videos, I'm going to talk about the anatomy of the heart. The first thing that I'm going to start with is the essential layers or the layers of the heart. Hopefully you understand the location of the heart. I'm not really going to go over that in detail, so make sure you look at the PowerPoint for that. So I'm just going to start by opening up my heart and figuring out what are my different tissue layers. To do this, I'm going to basically cut open my heart so that you guys can kind of follow along with me. And you're gonna need to draw more than a couple layers because there are multiple layers before you actually get all the way into the middle of the heart. So the outermost layer that we're gonna make kind of a thick purple color like that is full of collagen fibers. It's actually made of connective tissue, and this is our fibrous pericardial layer. So remember, the heart sits in the pericardial cavity, or really the pericardial cavity kind of surrounds the heart, and it has to have a double layer of serous membrane. It just so happens though that the heart has a special extra layer on top of it to provide more protection, and that's the fibrous pericardium. And yeah, it's gonna go all the way around. I'm just gonna be a little bit lazy with my drawing and maybe not do the whole thing. Maybe I'll come all the way up to there. Okay. Directly underneath the fibrous pericardium is going to be a thin layer of epithelial tissue. And that thin layer of epithelial tissue is closest to the body wall. And as a result of that, it is given the name parietal pericardium. And then what you're going to see is that parietal pericardium up here, it's going to flip over and then it becomes a layer that's actually closer to the wall of the heart or the muscle layer of the heart, like that. Maybe blue wasn't the best color. So it's going to be right on top of that muscle layer. That blue layer is actually going to be called the visceral pericardium. The visceral pericardium is also given another name. It's called the epicardium. So the epicardium is, I think, sometimes used more often, and it is a epithelial tissue layer. So then you can see that between the parietal layer and the visceral layer right there, that's where the pericardial cavity is. So the pericardial cavity is going to be filled with serous fluid, or yeah, serous fluid. And remember, this is the remnant of the coelom, of the embryonic coelom, which is why it's a fluid-filled space, okay, going between the visceral and the parietal serous membranes. And the point of that fluid is so that as the heart contracts and beats, it can have a slippery, smooth surface for these two membranes to slip past each other as the heart contracts. And then, of course, the pink layer here, which I'm going to make red, that's the myocardial layer. So remember, the myocardium is going to be made out of cardiac muscle tissue. Most of the cells contract, some of the cells don't contract. You'll learn about that in the physiology portion. But that's the layer that is actually doing the movement of the heart. And then the last internal layer, which I really should have made that one yellow, but it's too late now. It's going to cover the myocardial layer, is going to be really thin. It's going to be a nice, thin, shiny layer. When you look at this in lab, it's basically the layer inside of the dissection that has that shiny coat to it. That's the endocardium. Okay, so the endocardium is also made out of epithelial tissue, and the purpose of that endothelium is basically so blood can actually move out of the heart in a friction-free way. So all the red blood cells don't get stuck in all these little crevices. It just kind of moves smoothly out of the chambers of the heart. So those are our layers of the heart. We're going to then start looking at what are all the different structures. We'll look on the surface and then we'll cut this open again. We'll cut open the heart again to look at the internal structures.